Deadlock is Valorant's latest agent, and everyone's first impression is that she's pretty overpowered. Her barrier, grenade, and trap can all easily stop you in your tracks, and then on top of that, her ultimate is one of the craziest abilities ever added to the game. So when you first get a look at all of that utility, it's easy to see why she seems so broken. But if we look at all the gameplay we currently have and really break it down, you'll start to notice the downsides to her kit. By no means do I think that Deadlock is going to be a bad agent, but let's take a closer look at each of her abilities, some of their stats, and why they probably aren't as good as you first thought. Up first, we have her signature ability called Barrier Mesh. You throw down this disc that generates 4 barriers in an X shape, and these all block character movement. Barrier Mesh only has 1 charge and there's no cooldown or any way to regenerate it, so this ability is very similar to Sage's Wall, even right down to some of the stats. Firstly, the Barrier Mesh lasts for 40 seconds, and it will have a fortification stage for the first few, where the origin points aren't at full HP, and they're easier to break. Based on this footage, once the disc lands, it takes about a second for the walls to form, and then an additional 2 seconds for the orbs to fortify. You can see here that there's a visual effect, and an audio cue for when they reach full HP. Speaking of HP, let's talk about how much the Barrier Mesh has. For reference, each segment of a Sage Wall has 800 HP, which takes 21 Phantom Bullets to break. The smaller points at the end of each barrier have a total of 700 HP, so that's 18 Phantom Bullets to break it. However, destroying one of these will only take down this one segment and not the entire ability. To do that, you need to destroy the center point, which has a total of 1200 HP or 31 Phantom Bullets to break. Even though it has a little more health than a Sage Wall, I still think that this is slightly worse overall in comparison, seeing as you can still shoot through it, so it doesn't quite offer the same protection, and there isn't that same uncertainty about what's waiting for you on the other side. Either way, let me know what you guys think out of these two abilities, which one is stronger. I think to get the most value out of Barrier Mesh, you have to be pretty creative with it. For example, you can do things like block off the spike, so that the enemies have to break through it to defuse. I'm pretty sure you can even stop an Astral Pull from taking you off the spike, so yeah, creativity is definitely key here. One last thing to note with this barrier is that a lot of utility can be thrown straight through it. Riot are actually giving me early access to Deadlock in a few hours, and I'll be making videos to show you exactly what utility can and can't go through this barrier. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, because you don't want to miss all the videos that I have planned for Deadlock. Moving on to the next ability, which is GravNet. You throw a grenade that detonates upon landing, forcing any enemies caught within to crouch and move slowly. The main use of this is probably going to be to slow down enemies as they try and rush into a site, or alternatively to combo with damage dealing abilities similar to a Fade Seize. GravNet only has 1 charge. The net effect from this grenade seems to last either until the player is dead or until they remove their net. Also, I believe the slowing effect in itself is only applied to people who are in this field when the grenade detonates. So that would mean if an enemy walks in after that initial detonation, nothing happens to them. If you are able to catch an enemy with your GravNet, it seems like that effect will stay on them all the way up until they remove the net. If they do go to remove the netting, it'll play a loud audio cue to let you know. So this is of course good intel and gives you an opportunity to peek, but it's entirely possible they'll just tap the remove button to play the sound cue and then fight you when you swing out. It's also worth noting that enemies can't really leave the ring once they have the net on them, as once you reach the end, you'll just move slower and slower, so it's sort of similar to a Fade Seize in that sense, where once you're caught, you're stuck in that area. Because of that, like I said earlier, you should be able to combo this with things like a Gecko Molly or a Raise Grenade. Fade Seize does get the job done better because it takes away some of the enemy's HP, but GravNet will still be a viable option. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that pretty much every movement ability can help you escape from the net. Whether that be a Jet Dash, Raise Satchel, Omen TP, Yoru TP, even a Chamber TP, they can all basically negate this ability entirely. So while I'm sure GravNet will still have its uses, overall not too crazy of an ability here. Next up we have her Q ability called Sonic Sensor, and this is her only ability to have multiple charges, as you can place 2 of these sensors down on the map. How they work is by monitoring this area for enemies making a sound, then if it detects anything like footsteps or shooting, it'll stun that entire area, which you can see just how massive it is here when you go to place it down. When it comes to sentinels and their traps, we're normally used to being able to just chuck them on the flank and forgetting about them, but this won't be possible with Sonic Sensor because the enemies can simply shift walk past it. Same thing goes for defense, you won't be able to just deploy it to the entrance of a site then go rotate because they could sneak past. Sonic Sensor does not have a range limit for it to be active, so you can be anywhere on the map and will still be able to detect things, but again, you will obviously need someone nearby just to be safe. I think there are a lot of cool possibilities for this ability, but first we'll need to figure out exactly what activates it. One thing we do already know is that planting or defusing the spike will cause it to stun. This was actually shown in her gameplay trailer. This means you can basically set it up to automatically stun the enemy as soon as they go to defuse, which does sound nice in theory, but of course it relies on them not breaking it. I imagine it won't take long for people to be very prepared for this ability near the spike, similar to how people clear Killjoy's nanoswarms now. I think the best place to use this ability will be anywhere that the enemy is actually forced to jump down, places like B-side on Ascent, out of Hookah on Bind, or out of Drop on Fracture. Once they drop down, the stun will go off, and you can swing out for hopefully a free kill. It's worth noting though that it takes nearly a second between the trap detecting something and then actually stunning, so there's plenty of time to turn around and break the trap, or alternatively, use something like a jet dash to get out of the way. Overall, I think how strong this ability is will come down to how creative you are when placing it, making sure you're switching it up every other round so that the enemy doesn't know where to look, otherwise they'll just break it and you won't get any value. Finally, we come to Deadlock's ultimate, called Annihilation, and it costs 7 ultimate points. You fire to unleash a pulse of nanowires that captures the first enemy contacted. This enemy then becomes cocooned and is pulled along a nanowire path, dying if they reach the end. This cocoon is destructible though, so they can be freed. One of the devs said that this cocoon has a total of 600 HP, meaning it would take 16 phantom bullets to break it. The range of Annihilation is capped at 40 meters, so for reference, here is what 40 meters looks like towards B long on Pearl, or alternatively, 40 meters is the total length of B link. When this ability was first revealed, the first thing on everyone's mind was how crazy it would be in a 1v1, since there's no one there to break it for you. So if you're the last one alive and you get hit by Deadlock's Annihilation, there's nothing you can do, it's over. But that's assuming you actually get hit by it. You can see in this clip here from Boney that it's actually relatively easy to dodge it. It'll obviously be strong in a scenario where you need to defuse the spike, but still it takes a second or two for her ultimate to equip, and I honestly don't think it'll be much different to versing like a Brimstone or a Sova in a post plant, where you simply have to try and take them out earlier in the round, or find where they're hiding with their ultimate. One thing I haven't seen people talk about yet is just how good this ultimate is for picking off aggressive enemies on defense. Say for example someone is playing for a market on Ascent, I'm pretty sure it's possible to ult them all the way from tiles, and there'd be similar places on most maps where something like that is possible. Even just now, I realized you could do this on an eco, potentially dragging an operator all the way to safety on your side of the map, which is pretty exciting. There are also some unique interactions, like how Annihilation will actually grab a Yoru clone if that's the first enemy it comes into contact with. Of course, you also have abilities like Rena's Dismiss or Jet Stash, which allow you to instantly get out of the way. This ultimate is going to be strong on release, and I'm sure people are going to hate it. But as long as you're keeping an eye on whether or not the enemy Deadlock has it ready, you should be prepared enough to dodge it. That won't always be the case, but again, you can't always dodge ultimates like Brimstones or Sovas either. Hopefully it doesn't sound like I think Deadlock is awful or anything, because I do definitely think, especially on release, she'll seem powerful, but not quite as broken as everyone seems to think right now. Again, you have to remember that in the official clips from Riot, these abilities are being used in their best case scenarios, with no attempt from the enemies to counter them. There is one thing though I think will be really interesting to see, and that's how the recent nerf to reserve ammo is going to go with all these new things to destroy that have lots of health. Personally, I think that's actually part of the reason they made that nerf, since it was only 3 weeks ago when they made that change, and Deadlock has probably been in development for months by now, so it's not like they didn't know that this character was coming or anything. Deadlock's playstyle is going to be a lot more reactive than most Sentinels, so people might lock her in and expect to sit back like a Killjoy or Cypher, but in reality, you'll need to be ready to throw down your utility at any moment. Overall, I do think that she's probably going to be strong, but for now, people are overrating her. Don't forget, later today I'll be getting access to Deadlock, and hopefully we'll be able to make a few good videos, so make sure to keep an eye out for that.